Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Zezcast. I am flying solo today for another podcast, and I'm talking to a new acquaintance of mine, someone who I think you might find very interesting, has a connection to the games industry, is living in Japan right now. We're going to talk about some of those things. So on the line, I've got Antoine Fantys. Pleased to meet you, Antoine. How are you today? How you doing, mate?
I'm doing great,
Okay, very nice. So we're going to set things up a bit. You are Czech. As you told me, you grew up in Switzerland, and now you're living in Japan, and we've had interactions and talked on Twitter, and we had some common topics. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to get into that. So first of all, I mean, let's set the scene. So you grew up in Switzerland, and have you grown up in Czech Republic at all?
Well, I used to go there pretty often. I used to go like every year, like 4 times at least. See my family there. My grandparents from my dad's side emigrated to Switzerland back during the communist era, and so my dad grew up in Switzerland basically, and then he met my mom in Prague. So it's always been like I did grow up in Switzerland, but I've had a lot of links to Czech Republic. I would always visit, and I still have lots of family there. So yeah, even though I never grew up there, I do know that place fairly well, I think.
Sure, right on. So let's compare when you were growing up, just so we can sort of set the scene from where you're coming from in the games industry. What was one or two of the most influential games consoles for you? What were you playing in those years?
So, as a kid, well, my parents didn't want me to hog the TV, so I used to have a Game Boy Advance, SP actually. And they actually released the old Mario games on it, so pretty early on I started playing like games that are technically released before my time, even though they released those remakes on the Game Boy Advance. So I got a liking to those older games pretty early on. And then when I started actually getting into retro gaming, when I got the NES, I think I played that more than any modern games, really. So as a kid, I really liked getting the NES, and also like back then the games were super cheap, so I could go to the thrift store and buy one for like 5 francs, which is like $5-6 at the time, and I could just get games for cheap even with my allowance. So. So
what was the state of, let's say when you were getting it new, you were getting your Game Boy Advance, getting those, and then a few years later, sort of when you were able to step into retro. What's the status, or how was it like then in Switzerland? Were these things available? Was it normal? Did kids have them? What was up with Switzerland?
Well, I was quite the outlier, really, when it comes to retro. Like the Game Boy Advance, of course, like everyone had one, but for like the more retro stuff, like I don't think it became really popular up until recently. Like when I was a kid, I think I was the only one that wasn't playing like Call of Duty, whatever. I was that weird kid. For example, later on when you got an NES, were you getting, was it a PAL system, NTSC system? Do you see any of those weird French models hanging around? I actually had
output
the French model.
Okay.
I actually had the French model, and I started with PAL, and it was slow. I didn't like it because I actually watched videos. We already had YouTube at the time, so I watched YouTube videos of those games I used to play, and I was wondering, like, why does my game run so slow? And then I learned about NTSC. Eventually, I actually got an NTSC system, and I started like getting more games from America, because back then it was actually cheaper to get like a bulk of games from America. They were like $2 a piece, and just import them, even though we had to pay like the import fees. But I ended up getting a lot.
That's sort of where I was going. Yeah. That these were a little bit harder to come along in mainland Europe, and definitely where I am out here, the more east you go, shit gets
absolutely
really crazy. Because, and for people listening at home, the reason I asked about the French NES system is because the French always have to do things their own way. Mm-hmm. Being the inventors of SCART and championing RGB, which I can't complain about because every CRT here in Estonia has SCART RGB, so can't complain. But the French had to mandate it in a law that your console had to output RGB to be sold. So the NES solution to this was basically take the composite and just stick it, transcode it into the equivalent RGB. And send it across. So you weren't actually getting any resolution bump. You were just being able to plug it in via SCART.
Yeah,
so that NES, the French NES, that's got like equivalent of a multi-out on the back. How was it going from?
So I think it has like its own plug. Well, when I tried plugging in my SNES adapter, which was like the regular Nintendo multi-out, it didn't fit. So they actually came up with their own plug for the NES, for the French NES.
Yeah, there's a few different wacky solutions. The Sega, the Master System, and then the Mega Drive. I've got one of those cables, and Sega's solution, which was also their solution for other cables, was to put components in the cable. So I don't know if you've seen it, but I've got the Master System one.
They had a little box in the middle. Yeah.
And it's doing the transcoding, So, because I think I have one or two. I have one of those French ones, and it's just spitting out raw. Like as much as, again, I don't want to say I'm an electrical engineer, but I started to look at the traces, and the French Master System that I have is basically sending out RGB straight off the VDP, and it's not going through the Sony AW converter chip. That on my one is the AW chip is totally missing, and all they've done is bodge the output directly into the VDP, and then whatever shaping and attenuation is needed is done in that box, as you said. So it's crazy fucking shit was happening to comply with these rules.
They had to get inventive.
Yeah. So then you live in there, and what did you said you studied first of all in Switzerland. What did you study there?
I studied Japanese and computer science.
Okay, right on. Is that like a double major, or how does that
work? So I basically went into the arts faculty because I wanted to learn Japanese, and at first I did I tried some other things, but then I found out that you could do computer science for humanities, which is like language processing, that sort of stuff. But it managed to get me into actually learning computer science by itself and programming, which is also what I wanted to do. So I think it was a match made in heaven for me.
That's great that such a course existed. I have a degree in computer science, and I did it around 2000, maybe graduated 2002 or something like that. And we did one or two of our courses we combined with students from the art department. And it was just like entering another world. We'd never go to that part of the university. And it was all girls. Like, you got girls over here? Oh, they would be creative and stuff. And so I'm glad that such education options are now existing. So what was the inspiration with the Japanese language thing? Was there something in particular there? Was it just overall fascinating? Or was there one thing that made you love that culture?
Well, I think it was just growing up... playing games, watching anime, and reading manga.
Okay, right on.
So I thought I'd give it a shot.
Right on. And so I know I'm sort of fast forwarding through these bits so we can get to sort of the bits on Japanese culture and Japan. So you were saying earlier that you did a year abroad in Japan. You were able to do that. So there was was that through your university, or did you have to go and find that?
Yeah, there was a program. So my university in Geneva, they had a lot of partnerships with different schools in Japan, and one of them was Hokkaido University. So since Hokkaido, it has snow and mountains, so it's kind of like Switzerland. So I ended up going there, and I really loved it.
Okay, Hokkaido's a bit in the north, right? Is that?
Yeah, it's the northern island.
Okay. Right. Okay, yeah, shows me I've only been Tokyo and south, so my geography is a bit limited in general. So you're able to do that year, And how to say? Well, with that, as how to say? As a gap year, as some people might know it, or a study year in Europe, it's a program called Erasmus. And anyone who lives in Europe knows that word. Erasmus means fucking party and not doing much. How would you compare your gap year in Japan compared to maybe some of the crazy Erasmus stories we've all heard?
Well, there was drinking, there was partying, so I think it's kind of the same. Of course, you have to study a bit, but yeah, most of my days consisted of going to hard off, like just doing like Japanese classes, just wishing, oh, I wish I was at hard off right now. Then go to hard off. There was an amazing one next to me. I found good stuff like a super graphics for like junk super graphics for 10,000 yen. Still have it. And Mega Jet also for 8,000. Super CD-ROM 2 for 4,000. So yeah, I was like a kid in a candy store in that specific hard off. And then yeah, of course, I also used to drink a lot. We had like the boys, you know, we were drinking with the boys.
Of course. What year was that? So we can sort of ground it with the hard off, where hard off is right now.
So that year was 2018 to 2019. September 2018 to I think August 2019 when I came back to Switzerland.
Cool. That would be, I was trying to think, I've definitely visited Japan in that time. I'm trying to think when my last trip, I went recently, as you know, and my last trip before that was just before the pandemic. So when did the pandemic, 21 or 2020 or 21 did the pandemic
2020.
start?
Yeah.
2020, I forget, bro. Like that, when I was there, that cruise ship was in Tokyo Harbor, the first one ever to be quarantined. And I went down and got a photo of it. That's when it was still funny. Like, these idiots on their fucking ship not being able to get off. And lo and behold, no, none of us will be able to get off.
Yeah.
Real soon. So 2020. So yeah, okay. And I would still be there at 18. So definitely some golden days. And I know from living in a foreign country as well, every foreigner thinks the time before them was a golden age. Everything just before you came always seemed a bit better.
Yeah, it's certainly that way as well. Which is funny because I actually talked to a friend who went to Japan way before I did. I think 2003. He also went to Hokkaido. He knows a lot of the same places I used to go to. He's my coworker. And yeah, I told him like, oh, I wish I could have come during those days. And he told me, yeah, I wish I could have come in the 80s. So I think everyone thinks that.
Yeah, it's a common story that I've heard. So yeah, okay. So you've got your first taste of hard off. I guess something related to my story is your study for the year. Did you take all that crap back to Switzerland with you in that 1 year, or did you store stuff in Japan?
So I managed to stuff it in 3 suitcases, and the rest I just sent it through boat. It took 2 months. I sadly had a casualty. A Nintendo Color TV game sadly got crushed. Yeah, major bummer. But other than that, it actually came to Switzerland in fairly good shape. So yeah, it was a mix of sending stuff through the post and taking stuff with me in like 2 suitcases, and then I managed to stuff it in like a cardboard box because you could upgrade for relatively cheap. So whatever didn't fit, I put it in the cardboard box and managed to ship it.
Okay, yeah. How do you compare cardboard sending stuff by boat, and even if it takes a little longer, to adding extra bags? Did you find, like, because I was just like, fuck it, I'm just buying an extra suitcase for 70 euros. How do you compare the cost of those two? Did you feel it was a lot to ship by boat home?
Actually, well, I don't remember exactly how much it was to add like extra luggage, but I think it's about the same. Like 70 euros is actually pretty decent. I think I paid like 10,000 yen or something for shipping the stuff back to Switzerland.
So about 100, maybe a bit more than 100 euros or bucks. Or I just say the currency on this channel is bucks, which is meant to be either dollars or euros or whatever, is roughly the same. That's why I just always say bucks to keep it international. But Okay, and did you think you got for your 10,000 yen? Do you think you got more than a suitcase worth, or was it a big thing? How much?
I don't think I got the same amount as a suitcase. It was a bit smaller, so I think the suitcase might be actually a better deal. But I didn't know about it. I always had this thought that like getting an extra suitcase is gonna cost me like 300 bucks or something. So
I
yeah,
think it did back in the day. I think that's changed a lot. Airlines have
Oh
realized
yeah,
we will actually
with
buy
COVID and
more.
everything. Yeah, yeah, that's true as well.
Did you have? This is a little kind of a technical question for Europeans. Did you have to pay any sort of import tax when you brought your own stuff back home? Does Switzerland even have that? I don't know how VAT works.
So by if you ship stuff by the post, then yes, you have a lot of taxes, and they're very stingy about it. And like if it goes over a certain amount, like the value of the package, if it goes over a certain amount, you're gonna pay a lot, which is something I do not miss at all in Japan. I think I've only had to pay once the import fees, and it was only like 1,000 yen. So hooray, Japan!
Right. So because I was always very worried about that, and that was another inspiration for me to just find a suitcase and bring it back home with me on my personal items, because then I didn't have to screw around with all that VAT. But there are some provisions for personal items. I know when Mike Simone sent me his latest adapter, I tried to explain, like he sent me a handmade dongle that hangs off your Mister, and I tried to explain that to customs, and what the fuck what category does this even fall under? It's a gift, but it's made, da da da. And that, I think eventually I didn't have to pay import tax on that. Because it was listed as a personal thing, and I could show that I hadn't bought it. Because if it comes from AliExpress, there's no chance that you're going to prove to them that it's bought. Yeah. Okay. So after that, you went back to you. So you were interested in games design, and I know it's sort of jumping a little bit ahead. Part of the reason I'm talking to you is because you not only work for a reasonable sized games company, but you also do NES homebrew. What were your first steps into NES or such a low level homebrew, and when did that begin for you?
So it actually began when I was getting into collecting games. I actually came across the Commodore 64, and as you know, you can like type BASIC on it. So that's where I had my first taste of like, hey, I can actually make games for those old systems. So
okay, in BASIC, right?
Yeah. So I started with BASIC, and then eventually, back then there was a site called Nintendo Age around, like a forum. And they had like those tutorials called the Nerdy Nights, which was pretty basic compared to what we have today. But yeah, back in 2013 or something, it was the best there was. So after a few attempts, I managed to like get a decent game going, and then I've been just making games ever since. My early games were like very crude, like they were terrible, but slowly but surely, like I'm actually gonna release a brand new game very, very soon. Compared to that, I think over 10 years, the quality has certainly improved.
Well, one would expect. You would think so, getting better at something.
Yeah, of course.
Over the course of 10 years. So those early stuff, was that in assembly, or what were those first your tutorials done in?
Yeah, it was assembly.
Okay. And how did you just load them in emulators at the time, or did you have a way to load these onto real hardware?
So in the very first years, yeah, I just did everything in an emulator. I did not have access to an EverDrive or whatever. I do have an EverDrive. I do have flash cards now, at least for the NES, also for the PC Engine, because if you see my Twitter, I've started dabbling in PC Engine homebrew as well.
Cool. Okay, so now you're able to do it, and so yeah, what was the first time you were able to put your homebrew or some code that you've done onto real hardware? How did you do that? Was it just an EverDrive?
The very first time, I can't remember if it was actually when I was in Hokkaido. It's either when my friend from the Netherlands gave me his old EverDrive when he got the Pro, So either that or my friend from the United States made me like an MMC3 test card, so I could like test the game I was working on at the time on real hardware. So it was either one of those, and it felt pretty nice, like just like seeing it run on the actual hardware. It was like magic.
Was that test cart like a one-time burn only? Was it a rewritable thing?
Rewritable, of course. It's an actual MMC3 board. I believe the game was like a shitty racing game called Bill Elliott's NASCAR Challenge or something. So so we just like took the chips off the game. The card was absolutely busted anyway, so just took the PCB, took the chips out, and put some sockets in it, and I still have it. It's just like over there, and I don't want to. I don't want to get if I'm sitting on an improvised studio on my bed right now, because my apartments in Japan, they're small. My desk is like my desk is for work, so I tend to just like on my games I just tend to work from bed, which isn't a bad way of doing things, really.
Not at all. So so you were saying you took the old cart, put a socket on it, and then to change the ROM, are you just taking out the chip and reflashing it in some sort of flasher?
Yeah, I have a EEPROM writer. My friend, so the same friend who made the card for me, he had one of those old. Can't remember if he gave it to me or if he sold it to me for a very good price, but I got this chip, like this EEPROM burner, and also ROM dumper, really. And I still use that to rewrite this MMC3 chip when this MMC3 card. Just take out the EEPROMs out the sockets and like flash it on this device. It takes much longer than an EverDrive for sure, but the good thing about it is that it's an actual MMC3, so it's as accurate as it gets.
Yeah, that's dope. Okay, so you were already dabbling by the time you were doing your year abroad. Your eyes are being open to what's available here,
Yep.
and that's sort of inspiring you. It sounds like to keep developing there. So yeah. So when you so let's go talk about this from 10 years of working on the NES. And so this is working in low level stuff right now. Sorry to get back to that. We're working. So what's your tool chain? Sorry, is the word I'm looking for here. What's your tool chain, or what tools and apps are you using to build now these? Let's say with what you're currently using right now.
So for actually building the ROMs, it's very basic. I actually don't really like using modern IDEs for NES dev, like since it's so basic. Like I tried doing Notepad++ once, but like I just cannot stand having like the variables pop out in front of me. Like no, I want to write it exactly like this. So Notepad, screw it. So I write the games in Notepad, and I then use a program called NESasm3, which is like the worst compiler of the main 3 on the NES, but that's what I learned with, and I just this is gonna be a theme. Like I started coding on Notepad, and I just got used to it, so I keep working on Notepad. I learned on NESasm3, so I keep using that. And as for emulators, well, there's Messen, which is great, but again, I learned using FCUX, so I do still use FTUX, but on my latest game, the effects I used were so advanced that some of the parts don't work properly on FCUX, so I do use Messen as well now.
Okay. Is that a limitation of that emulator, of the old one, or what? I mean, what are you doing that's so advanced that it can't?
So on the NES, there is a flag that tells the system if there's more than 8 sprites on a scan line. But it's actually glitchy, and it was not used. But what you can do when you have not 8 sprites, because like 8 sprites is the limit on the NES, but if you have 9 sprites, then it becomes reliable. So what I do, I put 9 sprites on one scan line to do one timed event. So like I wait for the 9 sprites hit, and then I do my timed code. and after that or before that, I can't remember. I think it's one of the two. I used the more common way of doing timing on the NES, which is like there's one sprite, sprite 0, and the hardware can detect where the hardware pixels and the sprite pixels and the background pixels intersect, and that's like you can just wait for that, and that's another way of doing timing on the NES. So I basically used this this quirk of this buggy sprite overflow feature to do an extra piece of timing, because I just couldn't do it with one like sprite timing,
Right.
video timing.
And this is right. To exploit this, you need an emulator that's extremely accurate to exploit this same error that's in the underlying hardware.
I don't think it's that hard. It's just that it was never used. There's only one game that used it back then, and so since it's like so seldom used, most emulators don't even bother to implement it correctly. Like, just enough to make this one game run, and that's it.
Have these skills that you've learned from low level coding in the NES? I mean, let's say I know with your work job, we don't have to get into the company or specifics, all that sort of stuff. But are you doing such low level coding for your day job as well?
Oh no.
Okay. So that's higher end stuff. Okay, so it's games, so it's working in more modern tool chains, languages.
Yeah, of course. I got all the fancy schmancy things. None of that NES stuff. It's like two different worlds, really.
Did you get any of that low level stuff from your education at university? Because I only got Java. They decided just teaching us Java was a good idea.
Well,
we didn't get anything lower.
I also got the Java in the university, but yeah, like all of the low level stuff, I just learned myself.
Okay, yeah, I can understand that. I'm a bit of I'm still in two minds. I sort of Java allowed me to understand programming languages. I could make programs, and then I could go out and get a job and do that as sort of clunky as, well, at least back then, probably still today.
It's still
the
clunky.
JVMs are. It's still fucking clunky, yeah. So do you think that modern computer science education, should it be something a bit easier like Java, or who fuck knows, something else that's more modern, or should we be sticking to the roots and doing C or maybe even C++ or lower?
Well, what I think is that Java, and I think Python is probably better than Java these days. Like, it's good to make you like learn like program flow, whatever, how a program is structured, how programming works in general. However, if you want to like, if you don't want to just like do higher end stuff, if you actually want to learn computer, like it depends on what you want to do. If you just want to like make programs without worrying too much about the hardware, then sure, you could just do Java, Python, whatever. But I think it would be nice, and I think there are courses, like much more advanced courses, where you would also learn how the hardware actually works and how to program in a much more lower end level, like C++ or C.
Okay, so
It's
some
really,
sort of distinction, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to do, and there should be like two specific courses.
Yeah, I tend to go for the same thing. There needs to be some courses, and I think you also need to be educated about that, because I would have had no idea about such things when I was coming into it. And now there's more information out there. There's a thing called the internet. We can look at it. Such things didn't exist before for us to learn for ourselves or to understand such topics. So, yeah, and I'm still a bit undecided about which one I might have liked to do. I haven't worked in programming for 15 years or more. Or something like that. But I started off, I guess thanks to my Java training, I was able to get jobs coding Java and working, but that was working in enterprise systems. So where's Java usually used? Well, it's not working on cool games. It's not on cool other things. No, it's big friggin' companies that run systems and backends and so forth.
The boring stuff.
Was the boring stuff. And I didn't know anything, but I just wanted to get a good paycheck. So I was like, oh, okay. And I sometimes think that maybe I wouldn't have left the computer science or IT industry if I had worked for either low-level stuff or if I'd worked for a cool, smaller company and not just been a consultant for Johnson & Johnson and, massive glow. Here's the document management system for Johnson & Johnson. Oh, now I realize how fucking boring that was.
Yeah, I mean, I used to work IT, so I know how boring that kind of job can be.
Yeah. So while your job were you using your homebrew work as part of your CV and resume for your current daytime job? Did that sort of help it along?
I actually did.
Nice.
Well, since I'm doing tools programming, I mostly focused on like the level editor tools I did. So back during the pandemic, I did a game called Aira the Crow Maiden for Second Dimension on the NES, and actually on the Kickstarter is also advertised like, Antoine built us a cool level editor, check it out. So I actually showed this level editor, but other than that, I of course showed my my actual NES games. I showed that Aira game I was talking about, but I also showed some of my more impressive stuff, such as the Raycaster, and I think that caught the eye of one of the interviewers, which who actually used to work on SNES games back then. And
what's the Raycaster? What is that?
Oh, so the Raycaster is it ended up being a game called Horror Hospital, which is actually an April Fool's game. The whole thing is a lost meme. So it's like at first it's set in a hospital, but like you go through the game and like, oh, is this just one big lost meme? So, but for the engine for that was like a 3D Raycaster, like think Wolfenstein 3D on the NES. So like I used all those tricks, like super advanced stuff such as like self-modifying code and RAM and like all the like. Actually, I don't know if you know how the NES works, but basically you have like you have a tile map, and it's very difficult to do a frame buffer. So what I did is that I had like you had 256 tiles. So if you have 4 pixels, you can have like all the different combinations, but those were like 2 by 8 pixels. So if you didn't glue anything together, you would have like a huge 6 pixel gaps. So what I did was I took was every 2 pixels I actually had this very fast routine in RAM that would glue the screen together, and I like the tricks were so advanced. They're like this like self-modifying code involved. That's why I put it in RAM. There's also like you have limitations on how to use the X register in the like one of the registers you're always using, because it's used to make this routine fast enough so there's no artifacts on the edge of the screen. And yeah, just complete madness. And yeah, I actually showed that in my interview, and this one interviewer was pretty impressed by it.
Okay, he understood what was going down and went,
Yeah.
okay, this kid's onto something here. All right. That's cool. Like, have you? You said one of your interviewers was a SNES programmer back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found more of these random connections to old school gaming culture through your work or your social networks or something like that, or is that sort of the last? Person? Or have you met some OGs?
Well, in my company there are quite a few like veterans, like even some people who worked on PC Engine, like SNES, and yeah. So sometimes I actually share some of the stuff I did. Like on the work Slack, we have like a random channel. So on the random channel, I sometimes share like, oh, I did this PC Engine ROM, or like, oh, I just repaired this Wonderswan I found the hard off, and yeah, people seem to be pretty interested in that. And sometimes like, yeah, like some of those industry veterans, they say, oh, the PC Engine, that's how the development kits used to look like back then.
Cool.
So yeah, we get all this cool stuff, and yeah, so I certainly get to know some interesting people that used to work on these games, and like just yeah, just being a fan of older games is a good way to get to know these people and just chat with them and be on like friendly terms with each other, which is pretty cool, I think. Even
That's
with
amazing. That's definitely one
passing
of
the
parts of
language
being a good
barrier
developer.
and everything.
Yeah, how are you day to day? How's your language level day to day?
Well, my work is 100% Japanese, so
Okay.
I think I'm pretty much fluent, and I do watch movies in Japanese. Like some of the laser discs I collect, like the Godzilla movies, I just watch them in Japanese. I have some animes, just all in Japanese. I read manga, all in Japanese. So I'm probably pretty fluent by now. I'm not like nowhere near native, but I think I can get by. Like at least I have no issues in my job, so that's the most important bit, I think.
Of course, tremendous. So, what tell us about your latest game? You said you were going to release it soon. You've been working on it for a while. What's
Yes.
the current thing? Where did it start, and where are we going with it?
So the game is called Blazing Blocks. So when I was actually coming back from Switzerland and then in Japan in the train, I saw a lot of people playing like some sort of block game on their phone, kind of look like a mix between Tetris and 2048. It's like you have all those Tetris blocks and you place them on a grid, and like if you have to make lines out of them, and if you don't have any more move left, the game is over. I was like, hey, people actually seem to enjoy this game, and it would be perfect on the NES. So I started working on that, and yeah, it's pretty much complete. I just got pretty much the latest music from the musician. I finished doing the last few playtesting sessions. I sent it to a friend of mine just so he can test it on a PAL system, because it can do both NTSC and PAL, and yeah, it should get released in next week for sure.
Cool. So, release, you mean you're just going to make it available on your Twitter or different channels that you have, or how is it
Yeah, I'm gonna have it up on my itch, and I'm actually planning. It's still like more of an idea than anything. I'm actually planning to like do a small release like myself, since I've always done it through a publisher, but I do want to try my hand at actually make like the PCB design, whatever. Like I don't think I could ever do this. I'm probably just gonna buy the PCBs of a vendor and everything, but like actually making the cards, like there's a small print shop near me, so I could just like go there, ask them to do the labels and everything. I know they also do like I know they I've also seen that they do like print and plastic, so like they advertise like for the local izakayas, like they do like printing the name in the lighters, whatever. So
Okay.
that could also be cool for the future if I want to make hook cards, since I'm doing PC Engine homebrew. I started doing PC Engine homebrew. So yeah, like just get myself familiar with the actually making the physical cartridges. I could get familiar with the process with the NES, and then I could use that to actually make future homebrews, which would be nice. And I think this game is like the perfect test project to do. Like since it's not like a big that big of a game, it's like a smaller project, but it's perfect to like get my feet wet in like
Sure. So
making
to
the.
make the card, so you said you get the PCB from a vendor. Now, would they? Is that how to say? Would you be burning the chips yourself and then putting them in, or they would do all of that and make the PCB?
Well,
What does the vendor do for you
I
there?
believe one of the ones I've seen, it has like the boards, and you would just like you actually get the EPROMs, burn them yourself, which I could do. And the other way of doing it is like through RetroStage or Broke Studio. They also sell like flashable boards, and with the writer you don't have to do any soldering. The downside is that I believe they're a bit more expensive. But yeah, there's different ways of doing it. You can do either like just a board, bare board, and solder the components yourself, or you could get a ready-made board, just flash it with your game, and
Sure.
yeah.
What about the cartridge, the actual plastic housing?
Yeah.
Are they commodities that are available? Like,
I believe some. There's probably some Chinese sellers on AliExpress who do these. There's also like some of the homebrew publishers. They also like I know Rogue Studio, I think, has sells cards. The shells, I mean. Second Dimension, with whom I've worked on the Era. They do sell shells also, I believe. So I could do either that, but I do have a connection that knows where to get cards. So I'm just gonna ask him.
Okay.
He's gonna help me build the cards too, which was nice.
It's interesting. It does feel like a cool project to do it for, to do it yourself and really like that.
Oh yeah. It's much more
extension
fun
of
than
things.
just sending it to a publisher. I feel like it's part of the process of like doing this, like this homebrew spirit, like just one guy making games for these old systems, and I think making the cards is certainly part of that homebrew spirit, which I've been missing until now.
How does a modern homebrew NES program deal with the CIC lockout chip? How is that dealt with these days?
So first off, I'm not really a hardware guy, so I might be talking nonsense, but I believe there's like cyclones, as they're called, like clones of the CIC, which actually can do like all the regions. I know. My last release Wordle, I did it with Broke Studio, and their cards they have this system where you can reset if it doesn't work, if it doesn't boot up. When they reset, the region changes. But I think it's pretty much taken care of these days.
Okay, they've got that. Right, and you're not sure, though, where exactly, like, are they just making a sort of a clean room clone? Because there was that old thing, of course, the code was released back in the day. Somehow, I mean, I guess things have advanced enough they could make a clean room clone of that these days. Okay. Oh, yeah, the other one was, again, because I'm not a real low-level technical guy, but what do you need to do in that NES program to deal with both NTSC and PAL at the same time? What's going on? Is a speed difference? Do you have to code that in? What's up?
Yeah, so when the game begins, there is a way of checking it in software based on like how much time has passed between like two of it. I believe it's like V blank or something. I'm not too sure, but I know I just copy pasted code. Like all programmers did that. Everyone did that. I just copy pasted code that checks for these timing differences, and you can tell thanks to that if the console is PAL or NTSC. What you need to do after that is that basically you set up a variable that tells if the game is running on a PAL system or an NTSC system. And the hard part is you have to like make the timings right for both, especially for my game that has a lot of like wacky demo scene effects. And so like for each effect I have to have like one NTSC table, one PAL table. And there's some other differences, such as emphasis. I use a lot of emphasis to do... so emphasis basically brightens some colors and dims other colors. I use a lot of that on... I use a lot of that to make... to do like shading effects. So there's this effect where the screen rolls into place like that.
Okay, yeah.
And I use this emphasis there to make it look brighter, where it's like closer to the player. So,
sure. And
I think the effect works pretty well. And the difference between PAL and NTSC is that in PAL and NTSC, the red and green bits, I believe, are swapped. So you also have to have two tables for these effects. But that's like a very advanced effect. Like the timing is much more common, I think.
Okay, but the timing how to say, if you're working from a timing perspective, then you're sort of saying NTSC is 60 hertz and PAL is 50 hertz. So would your app go crazy for PAL 60, or would it just lose its shit?
So PAL, well, on the NES there is no such thing as a PAL 60 system. Well, there's like the Russian Famicoms, the Dendies. They do have like their own thing, but I just didn't go that far.
Yeah, okay, yeah, we're really digging too deep into that.
Yeah. But
the Dendies, was the Dendies something that were like, did you know that from the times when you were young in the Czech Republic? Were they around then?
I remember seeing like a Famiclone. I think there were Famiclones around. I know, like my grandma's neighbors, they had a ZX Spectrum. I used to borrow that. I used to do BASIC on it. And but other than that, you had like computers that people sent from the West, like relatives in the West sent to the family back in Czech Republic, and other than that, you did have Famiclones. I do remember seeing like a Poly Station in a Vietnamese shop back in my grandma's town, which was pretty funny. I almost bought it. I sadly didn't. I kind of wish I did.
Yeah, I'm a bit two sides on Dendies. I could see their historical value, but they don't do much for me, I guess, when I see them.
Yeah, it's like me neither. Like in Japan, we don't really have Dendies, but we do have like Famicoms. There's a lot of Famiclones because there's like a legal gray area where you can make Famiclones, and yeah, I just don't see the appeal either. Some of my friends do. Like I have a friend who actually came to Japan some time ago from Saudi Arabia, and yeah, he grew up on these, so he would probably have more like nostalgia for them. But since I grew up in Switzerland, where like we had the real thing, they just don't do much for me, really.
Yeah, I have friends who grew up here who are old enough to have remembered some times in the Soviet Union, let's say, and would have had that, and especially even in the early days of independence. Still, it's not like consoles were raining down on the population here. It still would have been Dendies that they were playing. But even those guys are like, nah, man, as soon as we could get an NES, a SNES, a real bit of hardware, we're absolutely all over it. So, yeah, I would say that even the people that I know around here don't quite have the same nostalgia for Dendy, kind of like what you were saying. Right on. So, okay, so we're in Japan, making that Netscape. How are you going to, coming back to your Netscape, I sort of sidetracked us a little bit there. So when you're creating, it would be cool to create those cards yourself, maybe put them together, make someone to make them or something like that. And then what sort of run of how many cards are you looking to make for that?
So that is a very good question. I might ask my local like Japanese homebrewer friends how much they do. I know they do. You can see them in like the shops in Akihabara. There's also like there was a shop in Sapporo that also carried like those new homebrew games for the NES. But other than that, like other than seeing it from the shops, I really don't know how much you would do on your average Japanese homebrew release.
Yeah, I could imagine even in Akihabara, maybe, I don't know, maybe the guys in Beep are interested in something, I don't know, or a few kind of places like that. And besides that, I imagine it would be online. So are you prepared to sell these online? Because that's a whole shipping and fucking taking orders and stuff.
Yeah,
that's a whole other world.
Well, with my day job and everything, it's probably gonna be hard. I'm probably gonna have to to the post office every day, but like I like it, a good adventure. I think it's gonna be fun. It might be hard, but it's gonna be fun for sure.
That's nice, man. How is the you mentioned you have other friends who are Japanese who are doing the NES homebrew scene. So tell us a little bit about the Japanese scene. That's something that in the West, no doubt. I mean, I guess they're following the scenes over here, but they're their own community. How would you describe or compare maybe the Japanese homebrew scene to the Western homebrew scene? Are there differences? What are your experiences?
I think in the Western homebrew scene, well, I think like everyone knows each other. It's much more like there's a much more community aspect, whereas in Japan, it's more. I think it's more online, but that's also like because I've only been there for 2 years and 3 months. But I did go to a meetup once. There are some meetups, so there's definitely also like a more physical part to it. Whereas in the West, like I went to like this convention in France when I was in Switzerland between my two periods in Japan. And there I met like everyone, like Broke Studio. I met Morphcat, and you definitely get much closer with the other homebrewers. You become much more friendly. I think it's very much a cultural thing, that in Japan people value their privacy a lot more than in Europe, where people are more open. So I think those cultural factors also factor in how different the homebrew scenes are.
Right. But the scene is still strong. There's still
like at least on Twitter. Like I do talk a lot with Japanese creators on Twitter.
That's cool. I like that. All right. So I mean, and besides you've got your day job, you're making NES games, and you're still hitting hard off whenever you can. So part of the reason that I got talking to Antoine is because he went up and grabbed a PVM. I had spotted it. There it is. There's the PVM
and
on the camera screen.
In the reflection.
So, yeah, I had spotted this PVM, and of course, there's no chance I'm going to be able to get a PVM on the plane. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. It was a good price. So then, because I know, was it you or somebody else had already seen this once before? And someone had said that it had been high. You. It had been a higher price, but there they dropped the price. Which is a fucking interesting idea, that a PVM dropped in price. It's not an idea we have in the West. So tell us, I guess, that backstory of that PVM. You saw it, then you saw it again on my feed.
So way back, I think it was in the summer of 2022. I went to this harder for the first time, and I was also like. I was very surprised to see PVM in the first place. And it was like this PVM and the DV tape player for 50,000, like plus tax, so 55,000. I was like,
it's about $500 or so, yeah.
Yeah. I was like, nah, even if I sell the DV tape player, nah. But then I saw your post on Twitter, and I was like, hey, it got down in price, so now, if I sell the DV tape player, maybe I could get a profit on the DV tape player and basically get a free PVM. And
the DV player works? It came with a. Yes. By the way, it was being bundled. It was in the junk section. Yes. It had a DV tape player on top. I don't know. They were just like bundle them together. So the DV player works. Wow. That's worth a good amount on its own.
Yeah, I know, and that's also part of the reason I managed to get it, because. I actually told my dad, I'm actually going to go get this PVM, because I always call my parents on Sunday. And my dad was like, don't sell the DV player. I have DV tapes I want you to digitize. And which is great, because since he wants to digitize the DV tapes, he told me, like, you can use my credit card on this.
Nice.
And that's not the best part. So when I came to the store, when I went to try it, I just couldn't get the DV tape player to work. Problem is that I had to like flick a specific switch to get it to play. And neither I nor the hard off staff knew that. So the store manager just gave us like, I do half price. So I ended up getting it for even cheaper. Well, and with my dad's money, well, he actually owed me some money for something I bought him in Japan. Sure. But the old price would have meant that I would have to give him some money back. The half price, I could even afford a taxi. All with the money my dad owed.
Do you remember the final price you paid?
It was 15,000 with a tax of 16,500.
Okay, so about $160 somewhere in that range
somewhere
or something like this.
Yeah, more like
For
150
a 14-inch
since the end of the week.
PVM. It's a 14-inch PVM, wasn't it?
Yeah. It's a PVM. Let me check the serial number. PVM 1454. Cube.
1454 with a DV player for $150. There are still treasures to be found in Japan.
Yep. I found another one the other day. Found this in the junk section.
Ah, tremendous. Wonderswan Crystal.
Why was it in the junk
How's it
section?
work?
I think you can see some traces of why it was in the junk section right here.
Oh, you'll clean that. That's
yeah,
fine.
just use some use some vinegar and yeah, works. You can play some Gunpei.
What's your take on when you've been going around a whole bunch of hard-off stores? What's your take on the number of CRTs that you see, or pro monitors, VGA monitors? What are your feelings about what are you seeing around in the market right now?
So, well, professional monitors, you see them like maybe once or twice a year. They do exist, but they're very rare. I actually got another one. I got a small 10-inch Ikegami. It doesn't have sound out, but it does have RGB in. I found this one for 300 yen.
Ah!
Because, like, it was junk because they did not know you have to plug in a signal to get the screen to work. So I basically got it for free because on top of the 300, I had a 500 yen coupon. So they basically paid me 200. Well, they did not pay me because I bought a few other things, but they basically gave me 200 yen to take this Ikegami with me. I was like, yeah, sure.
What did you say? Sorry, 10-inch or 13-inch? How big was it? Sorry,
10-inch.
10-inch. Oh man, I would have taken that home if I'd found that. The Ikegami.
It has.
I would say, yep.
Yeah, it has a small bit of burn-in, sadly, but I mean, for the price I paid, when you play, it's not even noticeable. So
you'll deal with it.
Yeah.
But I would say, because I mean, I hit, how to say it. And I understand when you say that you see them once or twice a year. I kind of get it. My experience in those 3 weeks that I was in Japan was extremely compacted. Every day it's three stores. So I'm hitting, 40 plus or more stores over my time. So I saw a few. The one that you bought, Hachiochi had at least the 9-inch PVM as well.
Oh, it had an actual PVM?
They had an actual PVM, but it was the smaller one. It was the 9/8-inch one.
I didn't know that. Maybe I didn't go to that store in that specific time period. How big was it? How much was it?
How much? I think it was still like... Yeah, sorry. God, I'd have to go back and look at my things. But it wasn't dirt cheap. It was like 100, 150. It was a reasonable price to pay for a 9-inch PVM.
I actually do remember seeing... I don't know if it was a PVM or like a multi-format PVM or an actual PVM, but I do remember seeing... I think it was also 14-inch. I think it was like... I would also have to look it up, but... it was like 30,000. It was also 14-inch, but that was like long ago. And but other than that, I don't really see them that much. It's just that recently, well, for the longest time, you just couldn't find any CRTs. But I think recently, especially with how even in Japan, retro games are becoming much more popular. I think we're starting to see a lot more CRTs over in thrift stores, like, because they're like great for retro gaming, whatever. I think the stores are starting to catch on.
They're starting to catch on, right? Because I did a podcast with Famicom Vink a while ago from the Famicom Dojo channel. And that was probably more than a year ago, I want to say. And I asked him about, because he's been in Japan for many, many years and been on the pulse of this stuff. And he said, not many gamers, only a few true retro gamers are interested in CRTs. Hard to find, only because nobody's interested in them.
Yeah,
and
that
so
was kind of... Yeah, that was kind of the whole deal. At least when I was in Hokkaido, I don't think I maybe saw like 2 or 3 like just no CRTs, and in since 2019, like in the span of 4 years, I'm starting to see more and more of them.
Yeah, I think too. I was surprised on my trip how many I saw, and not just some were quite expensive. Some of those PC Towns ones, and some of those specific monitors for some of those early computer systems there. But I saw a bunch of Trinitron, like just regular VGA Trinitron monitors in the junk. Even 1 or 2 consumer sets, maybe some of the interesting ones, but. Like Hachiochi had a nice lineup in the junk of 5 or 6 different CRTs, a bunch of iMacs in there. So
I know.
I was definitely surprised. Yeah,
and that store actually saw a X68000 monitor. I believe it was like 8,000, 9,000. I was I was thinking about buying it, but I couldn't get it to turn on. I think it was on standby. You probably needed like a remote. I think it came with a remote. But since I just couldn't get it to turn on, it was too much of a risk, so I just left it there. And next time I went to that store, gone, of course.
Yeah. And it's hard for you because you don't have a car, so like you had your adventure to get the PVM back to your apartment.
Yeah.
So you had to do taxi from the store to the train, and the train, and then how did you get from the train to your apartment?
Taxi.
Okay. That's a good CRT adventure. I like the one. 14-inch, not too bad. You can still carry it, but you carry it a couple blocks and you're done by that. Nobody wants to carry a 14-inch that.
No.
But I imagine you can't have too many CRTs if you've got that small Japanese apartment. There's a limited amount of physical space there.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty much at capacity with CRTs right now. I have a big PVM, a 20-incher. I have the 14-inch, and which is actually temporarily on my nightstand till I buy a bigger desk. And I have this Ikegami, and also below my bed I have like a shitty Victor one. It's also technically a Pro CRT, but it only has like two AV ends. No RGB.
I think I remember. Is that the Victor one? Is that the like super boxy one? Like it's an absolute
the
rectangle.
TM10. Yeah, exactly. That's the one.
Like I know your regular PVM is pretty boxy. Don't get me wrong. I understand there, but these were like super boxy.
Yeah,
super straight up dimensional. But you've got a 20-inch PVM as well?
Yeah, I do have a 20L5. Well, it's a D20L5J or something. I actually do have a 20L5. It only issue is that it has some minor like purity issues.
Can you notice it, or is it like in gameplay? Do you notice it, or only on the test pattern?
You do kind of notice it. I use it mostly for watching Laserdiscs.
Okay. Nice.
Most of my gaming I actually do on the 14-inch now, so since I have it on my nightstand, it's great because I can just like hook up the console and just play from my bed because I'm super lazy.
How did you get the 20-inch PVM? You got it there in Japan, obviously the J model.
Yeah. So this one I got it on Yahoo Auctions. I paid a lot for it, but it served me well.
Okay. Did you have to? If you got an did they ship it to you, or how did you actually get it? Yeah,
they used Sagawa to ship it to me.
Okay. What's Sagawa like? Is it? Would they take it to your door, or how did?
Sagawa is like it's a shipping company like Yamato or like the Post really, and what they do they actually do take bigger packages that the other ones don't take. And they just take it to your door just like any other postal delivery would. But the good thing about getting CRTs shipped to you in Japan is that in Japan people usually take a lot of care about packing things. I did have an experience on Mercury with a dodgy seller that did not pack it very well, and he was also a pain to deal with. He actually left me a negative rating. Yeah. No, he was really I don't know how okay it is to swear, but I really want to swear
Fucking
about
go ahead.
Yeah.
Fuck on. Go for it.
Yeah. So this guy was a dick, a right dick, and yeah, like very impolite, like very pushy, like just like have you paid yet? Have you left feedback yet? Blah blah blah. Blah. Shut up!
I would say
Shut
that
up, you fat
you're-
otaku! I have an actual job. I have actual social life. Something you probably never did. I know it's hard for you to understand that. Nah.
Oh, dude, that's my favorite fat otaku. Oh my god, that's my favorite.
No, I don't think he was, but that's how I felt about him. But yeah, and then when I saw his the reason I'm talking about him is when I saw his feedback. He actually had a lot of negative feedback. Because he didn't like pack it that badly, but like it was not packed good. But like he got assassinated. Like, why did you pack it in just that? Like, no, they're very how can I say it? Like they care about packing things in Japan. You've probably seen it like when you go to a store. Like everything is like wrapped in plastic, so they do take a lot of care to pack things. And it's also true with CRTs. So it's actually not a bad idea to have CRTs shipped here because you like 99% of the time the seller is gonna make an effort to pack it well and actually research how to pack it properly. My PVM was like really well packed, like top notch.
I think my friend Steve from Retro Tech, he's had 1 or 2 PVMs now sent from Japan to America, and they've both arrived okay. So I was a bit, so I didn't know you could actually do that import. Like maybe actually you know something about
you
this.
absolutely can. It's just gonna cost an arm and a leg.
Right. But then I also understood, maybe into the European Union, which I understand Swiss is not a member, but fine. Close enough. That
Czech Republic
you
is.
Can't, well, true. That you can't import a CRT because of the chemicals and the old technology. There's some import restrictions. I don't know if that's real or not. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, and actually going back to earlier, I believe you talked about like getting your stuff checked by customs. I know that when you, for instance, in Switzerland, when you come back from Japan, if you actually move from Japan to Switzerland, my dad told me about this, if I ever decide to come back to Europe, there is a clause that customs may not bother you if you're like moving, if you're actually changing your place of residence from Japan to Europe. So if I hire a moving company and everything, I don't think I'd have to actually worry about that, which is great, because I could actually bring my PVMs, bring my Laserdisc plays, whatever. But yeah, there are such provisions, especially in the EU. I know the EU is very it's very strict about some of these
some of that stuff,
harmful materials, whatever.
But going back to what you were saying broadly about Japanese sellers, I mean, you had that one person who wasn't real good, and I tend to think that person might be the exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, it certainly was the exception to the rule over the course of those, let's say just 3 years living in Japan. I think I've only had this one bad experience. The other times I bought from Japanese sellers, which is amazing. A lot of times I actually got little messages like, thank you for buying like handwritten notes. They're truly amazing when they sell stuff online.
Whenever I'm looking, maybe I'm browsing Reddit or something, and somebody's like, oh, I want to buy a PlayStation controller, a GameCube controller or something, but I'm worried about getting a fake. How do I know it's a fake? My advice to them is go for a Japanese seller.
Oh.
Fakes are not coming from Japan. You're probably going to get them right. You're going to get that nice seller. You're going to get something genuine from Japan. They've usually got some deal on postage. And really, fakes are not coming from Japan. Like, you can have a much higher
No, they're not. But what I've been sadly seeing is I've been seeing a lot of those. Since I'm big into PC Engine, I've actually starting to see some PC Works reproductions, which are just bootlegs, really.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of times they
Okay,
are
and
marked as reproductions, but I fear that some of the higher end PC Engine games you might actually see some fakes. But like if it's something like a controller, or of course, if it's not like a $500 game, whatever. No, it's never gonna be fake. Even for consoles, I think like higher end consoles, they're not gonna be fake. If anything's gonna be fake, it's gonna be like some very, very specific games, like higher end PC Engine games. Those might be fake, but like even then, 95%, 99% of the time, even they're gonna be genuine, I think.
That's a good point. That the up. Okay, we've always got to be cautious. So fair. Look,
Yeah,
that's
of course.
reasonable advice you've got, because there was that little controversy a little while back where it apparently Wata Games had certified or whatever they say graded, sorry, a PC Engine game, and it turned out to be a fake in the end.
Yeah.
And so those are sneaking through. So I guess, yeah, if you're buying on the upper end of the market, well, you're probably pretty wise to be out looking out for these things no matter where you're buying from. Yeah, I get that. Okay, man. That's cool. So day to day right now, when you're going to a hard off and you're looking around, what are you looking for? What are you in the market for? What do you think's what's the thing you're collecting for or looking for right now?
So, what I'm my main collection is hook arts. I'm pretty close to owning every hook art ever made. I think I'm like 25 to go. But yeah, recently it's become much harder, of course, to get those last 25 I need. If I see a nice CD game for the PC Engine, then yeah, I would buy it if the price is right. I'm probably gonna focus on these a lot more when I'm done with my hook art set. And other than that, I am looking for like any cool junk, like what I showed earlier. This Swan Crystal. I'm also looking for all the different Game Gear variations. Like this is one console I actually know how to fix. Also, so just like looking for cool junk that I can actually fix. Then I would absolutely I would absolutely buy that if the price is right. More, especially so if it's a Game Gear color I don't have yet.
Yeah, what colors of Game Gear do you have?
Right now I have the white one. I have the smoke, Ray Earth blue, and regular black one.
Okay, all right. Because the Game Gear pricing is something very interesting, because it just seems like to me almost when I observed like whether it works or not, it was almost the same price. They were just. Maybe it was a reflection on how straightforward those things are to fix. That, or what's your thoughts on when you see Game Gear pricing around the place?
I think it really depends. I think it really depends on the seller. The price, at least last time I checked, it's probably gone up now. But last time I checked, I actually sold one. The price for a refurbished Game Gear was like 7,000-8,000 yen. But that was also when you could get junk ones for 2,000. Right now, it's a bit harder to get like regular black models for 2,000. The cheapest ones I've seen were 3,000 these days. And but yeah, you also see some of them going for like 7,000, 8,000 junk. Like I don't know where they come up with those prices, but yeah, it really depends on the seller. It really depends on the seller, I think.
What models are left to go then? I know there's that famous Coca-Cola one, but I don't know.
Yes, the Coca-Cola. I actually saw this one in Hokkaido, and back then it was for a great price too. I think it was 6,000, but at the time I did not know how to fix the Game Gears, so I passed on it, and I'm still kicking myself for it. But yeah, the Coca-Cola, the Kids Gear. Regular red one and yellow one. I really want the yellow one. This one looks cool with the green buttons. It's like the banana.
Were you interested at all?
So
Did you get
awesome.
any of those Game Gear minis that came out? in different
I do
colors?
see them from time to time, but not really. I'm more interested in the real thing.
I'm the same with those the re-releases that they made. That there was the Mario re-release and the Zelda handheld re-release. The Game & Watch variant, but you could play the different things. I mean, it's kind of cool, but
Yeah, it's cool. I actually got the Mario one, but
okay.
yeah,
I can imagine you get the Mario one. Okay,
yeah, but
close to your heart.
For the Zelda one, I just didn't care enough for that one.
Yeah, it was definitely the sort of thing I was thinking. Here in Estonia, in my local electronics retailer, and there was sort of a lineup of those boxes, and I went, they're not moving. I'm going to wait. Yeah, it's going to take them 2 years to drop the price on that, but I'll wait until they drop the price. It's not. I don't have to get it at $60. Not like another way to play that again. I could just play it on the Switch if I wanted to play a portable, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, thanks. Let's. Why don't we wrap it up here? This would be very interesting to hear about your life in Japan and hear about your coding thing. So, do you know, to sort of wrap us up though? Once you release the game that's coming out, what have you got some thoughts about what your next game will be?
I actually do. I've started working on PC Engine homebrew. I actually have my
okay, that's good.
actually have my LT with me. I use for
yeah, love it.
I do have an LT. Sadly, my flash card. I found it. I had my flash card in it. Right now, it's cross fiber because I actually use this. It is related to my homebrewing because recently Messen was updated to actually support PC Engine, and I actually used this game cross fiber to like help the other troubleshoot a bug. So that's why it's in there. But yeah, I really wish there was my my flash card in there. I don't know where it is, but yeah, I do have a flash card, and I actually started making games for the PC Engine. So my next game is absolutely going to be a PC Engine game. Either port of the game I'm going to release now, like a basic card game, just to get familiar with the hardware. But after that, I don't know. So I had this big project on the NES, but I think I might put it on hold because I'm a big fan of Metroid, and I do want to make a Metroidvania, and I think the PC Engine, especially on the CD, would be a great fit for it. So the future is certainly going to be on the PC Engine for me, for stuff with this much simpler game. But then, hopefully, I hope I'm not going to like lose interest in the middle of it again. Hopefully, I am going to make this dream Metroidvania game on the PC Engine, and that's like the big project I want to do after.
Nice, mate. Cool. Well, all right. Well, thanks very much for taking your time today. I appreciate the end of the day doing this, and I hope that when I visit Japan again, we'll be able to hang out here.
Absolutely.
It'd be cool. Unfortunately, I didn't sort of really get to know you before, only till after I left, so I wasn't able to hang out. But next time for sure, mate.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, mate. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Appreciate that. Do the like and subscribe. If you got this deep into the podcast, you have my thanks. My true thanks.
If I didn't bore you to death.
Nah, we love it. We love it. Ciao.